Hello, I'm Jane Dutton. Welcome to a wrap of the week's news.
This is Eyewitness News.
As US President Joe Biden and Donald Trump slug it out on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean to try and secure the top seat in government, a political battle is taking place here too. The governance partnership between the ANC and the Democratic Alliance is hanging by a thread. DA's federal executive is faced with whether to take or leave a reduced offering of ministerial positions that don't meet its expectations. And some in the ANC remain highly opposed to its formation.
While the ANC's NEC gave the thumbs up for the formation of a government of national unity, some were seemingly hoping it wouldn't comprise of what has been described as white oppressors. ANC NEC member Lindiwe Sisulu and Magaziwe Mandela, in an open letter, admit they are aware the party's heritage is at the mercy of enemy agents from within its ranks. They make submissions asserting the statement of intent involving the ANC, DA and 8 other parties was hastily signed, insisting these actions amount to selling out. Sisulu and Mandela further say the arrangement could potentially have a negative impact on generations to come. In the letter, the pair mentions they will raise their concerns through the appropriate channels. Alpha Ramshwana, Eyewitness News.
58 MK representatives were sworn in as members of parliament this week. Some of them, Jacob Zuma's daughter, Duduzile Zuma Sambutla, Andile Mngitama, and former and disgraced judge John Hlophe. The Progressive Caucus says it has no plan of disbanding, despite the UDM, Al-Jamaa and PAC having left it to join the ANC's Government of National Unity. There are suggestions that the poor voter turnout at the 2024 national and provincial elections is a sign of a struggling democracy. The Thabo Mbeki and Ahmed Kathrada foundations have proposed the establishment of a national dialogue to restore the legitimacy and credibility of South Africa's democracy.
The current parlor state of our economic growth, coupled with widespread corruption and crime, poverty, gross inequality, and intractable unemployment, have earned our nation a dishonorable place on many global indices. This poor performance is corroborated by the lived reality of the majority of our citizens, whose experience has rendered us the protest capital of the world. Such a ticking time bomb must be disarmed, and it must be disarmed through a more responsive democracy.
A disturbing debate between two men on a very public platform. One of them will likely become one of the most powerful politicians on the planet. US President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump took part in the first debate of the 2024 election leading up to the vote on November the 5th.
Making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with, we finally beat Medicare. The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done.
People Power won the day in Kenya after violent protests against a proposed tax bill. President Ruto did a U-turn and eventually refused to sign the tax hikes into law. More than 20 people were killed and hundreds injured when police opened fire on demonstrators outside Kenya's parliament. The complex was ransacked and set alight. The cash-strapped government said the increases were needed to service the country's massive debt of some $78 billion. That's equal to roughly 70% of Kenya's GDP.
The use of live ammunition on unarmed citizens is utterly unacceptable, and it is a blatant violation of human rights. This 2024 finance bill, it aims to extort over 2.7 billion in taxes from an already overtaxed and struggling Kenyans.
Tomorrow, we'll see South African cricket history. The Proteas play in the finals of the Cricket World Cup. What are our chances?
The Proteas will be playing in arguably the most important match in their history on Saturday afternoon when they take on India in the T20 World Cup final. The Indian team made it through with a 68-run win over the defending champions England, and despite both teams being unbeaten at the tournament, India will be considered as the favourites since the Proteas men's side has never made it this far in a World Cup tournament before. Ahead of the game, fans of the team as well as Cricket South Africa created a festive atmosphere in the Melrose traffic on Friday morning as they encouraged their fellow South Africans to get into the spirit and get behind the national team. CSA Public Affairs Executive Refense Shinners was thrilled with the support that they received.
I guess it's testament to South Africans knowing how to party, even ahead of the match itself. So it's testament to show that everybody is behind the Proteas. And can you imagine if that was the experience we had this morning, what it would be like when we win tomorrow? It would be the most ecstatic thing to have ever happened, especially under our watch as part of cricket. And I think it will be a defining moment for cricket in South Africa.
That game between the Proteas and India starts at 4:30 on Saturday afternoon. Mawande Mateza, Eyewitness News Sport.
Some big developments outside our borders this week. 5 South African pilgrims died during this year's annual Muslim pilgrimage, or Hajj. Durka officials say their deaths had nothing to do with extreme heat, which claimed more than 1,300 lives.
We had asked our Consulate General in Jeddah for a report. And although there were 5 persons from South Africa who had undertook to go to Hajj, had passed on. All those that had passed on were people who had died either out of illness, but not as a result of the heat wave.
A South African mother who killed her 3 children in New Zealand has been sentenced to 18 years in mental care. Lauren Dickerson was found guilty by a jury of murdering her 2-year-old twin daughters and their 6-year-old sister in 2021.
There will be an order pursuant to Section 34(1)(a)(1) of the Criminal Procedure Mentally Impaired Persons Act that you be detained in a hospital as a special patient under the Mental Health Compulsory Assessment and Treatment Act. It will be for the relevant medical authorities to determine when you may be fit to be transferred to prison.
In the Israel-Gaza war, 21,000 children are unaccounted for. Save the Children is calling for an investigation into the missing children in Gaza. They believe 21,000 are lost, disappeared, detained, buried under the rubble, or in mass graves as a result of the Israeli operation there after the Hamas attack on Israel on October the 7th. After more than a decade of legal toing and froing and being incarcerated, Julian Assange is free after pleading guilty. The founder of WikiLeaks boarded a plane home for Australia. And that's it from us. Have a good weekend.
Eyewitness News, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, log on to ewn.co.za or ewn.mobi.